So we'll give this a start then, eh? So welcome along to the second live session in the Newsletter Know-How course. I'm Bree Yardley, of course, and I'm glad to have you all with me here today. Just as a quick recap, you're here because you want to develop your skills to produce a quality newsletter and be able to understand your readers better so that you can sell more books to them. Each Monday, but not at 8:30. We're going to cross that out. Oh, we're going to get a pen. Cross that out. Not 8:30, 7:30. I don't write very well with the mouse, so bear with me. Each Monday at 7:30, we're going to have the live session, and then obviously each Thursday at 7:30, we'll have the Facebook group, which worked really well on Thursday, so feel free to pop along. All the links for everything on the webinars can be found in your manual. So if you miss something while we're running through the slides, you should be able to find it in the manual. And if you can't find something after that, send me an email. I'm on bree@breeverity.com. So how did you go with the homework? If you remember, the things you were tasked with were setting up your list of subscribers or your audience, setting up a sign-up form, and if you wanted, putting a link on your Facebook page for people to sign up to your newsletter. So did anybody have any dramas with that? Just in the chat if you had any questions about that. The other homework that we had was to do your list of subgenres and themes and tropes. Oh, you did get that fixed, Lou. That's great. And then, of course, the other ongoing homework is to have your reader magnet ready for us. Oh, that took a long time. Ready for us by week 4, which is a piece of writing that you can give to your prospective readers as a gift when they sign up to your mailing list. A short story or novelette's great. You could use character profiles or a map or deleted scenes. But if you are struggling for time, the easiest thing is to take your first couple of chapters, copy them into a new document and just make it an excerpt. That first 10% of your book is always available on Amazon anyway, so it's not like you're giving anything away. All right, so if you run into any trouble with that, send me an email as well. So what we're doing today is about developing your newsletter content. And the things we're going to talk about, is everyone actually seeing the chat window in the middle of the slideshow? Yes, no? Yeah, okay. I'm just going to shift it. There we go. That's better. Okay. All right, so today we're going to look at a little bit of sales psychology, and then we're going to look at what you can write about in your newsletter, and then we're going to go through how to build a template in MailerLite or MailChimp, and then we'll send out a newsletter if you're at a point where you want to send one out. Okay, so here's a question for you. How does a newsletter help you sell books? Happy to read your answers from the chat. Anyone? Yep, tell people when upcoming books are coming. It tells people you have books. All right, so the answer is that your newsletter sells you. You're the commodity, you're the unique selling position, you're the person that they're signing up for, not your books. They sign up to your author newsletter, not a newsletter about a book. So it's talking about you, you big rock star. You're remember that you're ability to write books is something that isn't usual. It makes you somebody interesting and makes you someone special. Once the people have signed up, the next thing that it does is it builds trust so that your readers can expect sales messages in amongst your other messages, and that's a sales thing called permission marketing. And the third thing it does is it turns your committed readers into friends. And the reason that you want them to be friends, I mean, they're not your best mates or anything like that, but they're your friends. The reason that you want them to be friends is because we're not competing with other authors to sell our books. What we're competing for is a slice of people's leisure time. People can use their leisure time to do a load of other things apart from reading. And one of those things is hanging out with their friends. So you want to use your newsletter to try to turn those people into, if not friends, then acquaintances or people who look forward to talking to you. So when we look back at the sales funnel, you can see that the excuse me, that the relationship is still developing between the time they pick up your reader magnet, the time they hit your newsletter. It's only after the relationship develops further that you're going to be able to directly market to them. Until that time, you need to exercise restraint. You can put little things in your newsletter, but you don't want to do a bam, full-on direct market at them. So how do you turn those early subscribers into your super fans? And it all comes down to a little bit of psychology. Now, I like sales psychology and marketing psychology and organizational psychology. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that stuff. And I'm going to give you a little tiny bit of it here, but it's nothing too scary. So don't be afraid. So the somatic marker theory of emotion, when I first read that, I thought it had something to do with sleep, but it has nothing to do with sleep. It's a psychological theory about how emotions affect decision making. At its simplest, a good experience creates a positive somatic marker or emotional signal, and a bad experience creates a negative somatic marker or emotional signal. And it's the collection of those signals inside your head that determines your purchasing behavior. So yeah, a somatic marker is just the little buzz in your head that you get. It was originally used to try to work out why some people with brain damage take unnecessary risks, but I'm not going to go into that side of it. It's all down there in the slide if you want to look more at that. But for our purposes, all we're looking at is that a somatic marker is a collection of positive and negative emotional signals. So to give you an example of how that might work, you say you want to buy a new car. You see a commercial on TV with an amazing sports car whipping around some hills of some beautiful European country, and you, because they're really good at marketing, you visualize yourself behind the wheel, and that creates your first positive somatic marker. Later on, you see the same model of car on the road. It's shiny and beautiful, and the engine purrs as it passes you. So you get another positive somatic marker. You go to the dealership to take it for a test drive, and the salesperson's actually kind and courteous, doesn't try to hard sell you. Oh my goodness, that's definitely a positive marker. But you take the car out and the gears are this is a tiny bit clunky, so that's goes on the negative side. That's your first negative somatic marker. All right, so you look up the reviews online. They're like 85% positive, and the negative ones where a delivery's been bungled or there's been really minor issues or something. So that's another positive. And you might mention to your mates that you're thinking of buying that particular car, and one of them tells you about one of his friends who bought that. It's given him nothing but trouble. And depending upon how much you trust that person and how much weight you give to what they say, that could be another negative somatic marker. So from the emotional information you've collected, you've got more positives than negatives, you decide to go buy the car. Everything goes smoothly, the new car is delivered, the gears aren't clunky at all, and you're happy. The thing is, those markers stay in your head and continue to affect your decisions, even after they've done what they're supposed to do. So you'll go on to talk about the car to other people and say how good it is and how awesome it was when you bought it and that you had a really good. So all of those things play inside your head all the time. So if we only allow our communications to produce positive somatic markers, our potential readers will want to read. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with your newsletter. So each contact you have should try at least to be entertaining and informative. Then the reason we do that is because when your name pops up in their email list, they get that little shiver of positivity and they actually want to open it and have a look at it. And of course, the opposite as well. If we let our communications produce negative somatic markers, our readers are just going to not read and then go away. And that'll apply to people who could be purchasers as well as just tire kickers. So what goes into making a newsletter that produces positive somatic responses? I'm not going to leave that one up to you. So you need content that's interesting and entertaining to both the sender and the receiver of the newsletter. So it has to be stuff that interests you as well as your potential audience. Because if it doesn't interest you, that'll be really obvious and it'll be a boring newsletter and people will walk. The other thing it needs to be is written with your audience in mind. And that's about the style, the way you write it, and what you actually put into it. So from there, we're going to move on to what to write about. Okay, so coming back to the questions we had last week about I'm not interesting enough, nothing's really, you know, I'm not that fascinating. So you find that when you get your newsletter on a monthly basis, you think nothing exciting's happening. All I've really done since last month was write a bit more of my book, or I don't even have a book yet. What am I supposed to do? So you need to improve your own enjoyment of your newsletter. And the way that you do that, oh, look at that. I've had all these things coming up. All I've done since last month was write my book. I don't even have a book yet. All you need to do is match up what you're interested in with what your audience will most likely be interested in. In regard to what you're actually going to write about, the things that'll go into your newsletter, we're looking at 3 places to get information. So first of all, you, and then your potential audience, and then we're going to pop over to everyone's friend, Mr. Google, to put it all together. So when we're starting with you, whatever you put into your newsletter, it has to be of interest to you, or your newsletter will be a chore. And once it's a chore, you'll forget about trying to produce positive somatic markers. You'll just do it and get it done and get it out of the way. So let's not make your newsletter a chore. How do we work out what's going to be of interest to you when you think you're simply not that interesting? Well, it's very, very easy. We do an exercise that's called a you cloud, which is basically a word cloud of all the things that make up you. Now, Kristen Lamb is the writer of a book called Rise of the Machines, Human Authors in a Digital World. And she's one of the 3 people I listen to when it comes to online media. It's her and Chris Syme and Tammy Labrecque, who is the Newsletter Ninja. There you go. So she came up with this concept first, and I've kind of borrowed it from her. And from her book, it says, if we could put an ingredient label on you, what would we see? You're more than just a writer. I want you to focus on emotional words, what makes you feel, names of songs, fragments of thought, images, movies, moments of power, hobbies, television shows that you love or hate, and that kind of thing. So what we're doing what we're going to do now is just a quick 5-minute exercise where you grab a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. You could do it on the computer if you want to,